We're live. Yes, it's I'm 8. I'm late. It's 8 o'clock. That's all good though. But today we're going to talk about a couple things. One is we have some new products that were at richardholdenperformance.com. I have a photo up. The thumbnail, in fact, is a photo of the spring tool. It's of Jimmy testing that out, and I've used this style of spring tool a lot, and we just wanted to make sure, like I said, we test all the stuff that we eventually try to offer, because that's how we find out whether or not it works, and because we don't want to sell. And like I said, we've tried things that we wanted to work, that we thought, oh, this would be good, this would help, and then they ended up not working. And so that's why you test stuff, because you find out, hey, look, this is not the thing, or this is the thing. Ben's your first in line. He's in the pole position. So that's how we find out. We try it and we test it and try it again, try it again, try it again, make sure that it's going to keep doing what it's supposed to do. And these work, and it just makes life a lot easier. And anymore, after going through all of the things that we've gone through, time is very valuable. And I'd rather just take the time and to get it done right than have to do it over and over and over again and struggle with it and have it be a pain. Just get the tool and have it be easy, so that it's like a pleasant experience when you're doing cam swaps. Because trying to do it with, we've all, if you've done this any number of times like we have, putting a socket on it, hitting it with a hammer, and trying to do it without putting air in it. Just all the things that the knucklehead things that we have tried. And I'm including myself in that, because I've been down that road. So doing it that way, it just, you end up looking for parts, you end up breaking things, you end up not, it's a long, involved process. Because I can remember how much I had to do spring swaps a lot on the engine dyno. And so we would do cam swaps, and then we would run the stock cam, and it usually have the stock springs, because you start out like in some sort of stockish condition, and then you do a cam swap on it. And when you do a cam swap, unless you already had springs in it, which I started doing also, let's just put the springs on the heads, and so that they're there ready to go. We could just run the stock cam with those springs and not have to do a valve spring swap. But if we do have to do a valve spring swap, having a valve spring tool like this, especially for the LS, is dedicated to that, pushes both of them down. You just put air in the cylinder. You can put rope in it. You can do whatever. You bring it up at TDC. There are a lot of ways to do it, but we use air. Put air in the cylinder. We use a leak down tester. Put air in the cylinder. Hold the valves up. I go through, and what I do when I'm using this tool, and anytime we change the springs, whether the head is on the motor or not, I go around after you undo the rockers, because you're swapping the springs out. I go with a metal hammer, mallet, whatever, and I just hit the edge of the retainer. So I just tap the edge of the retainer. You could tell when you hit it, if it's moving everything. If everything stays in place when you hit it, that means the retainer and the keepers are still locked together. Because after they've gone up and down that many cycles, they kind of become one. And so you got to free those up. Otherwise, when you use the spring tool, it wants to push the valve down also, because they're all attached. If you just go in and tap the retainer on all of them, you'll be able to hear the difference in the sound. You'll tap it and go, oh yeah, that broke free. And then I go in, after you've done it 100 or 200 or 1,000 times, you just go and whack, 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 hit the edge of all of them, and it just kind of rocks it just a little bit, enough to break it free. They're all broken free. Then when you use the tool, you just push it down. The valves stay up. The spring gets compressed with the spring compressor. You take a magnet, fish out the keepers, undo the spring tool, let the spring up, swap the springs, put it back in. And especially on with the springs that we sell now for these kits, they don't, unless you're putting a dual spring in, they don't require, or a specialized spring. You don't need to change the stock factory seals. So it's just a quickie spring swap. So it happens really fast. If you're changing the seals, then you got to take the seals out. Again, that's not a big deal. You just grab with pliers and it comes up, and you put the new one in, and you got a new spring seat, because you have to have something to hold the spring in place, either an ID or an OD. And then you tap the new seal in, 12 millimeter socket. You just tap that in. That's not hard. That's pretty easy to do. And then if you're setting the springs up, to a specific desired installed height, and you've measured all that. That's usually when people set cylinder heads up after they've done a valve job and done all that stuff. They know where everything is going to sit. What you'll do is, if you want them all at exactly the same installed height, so they'll all have exactly the same spring rate, and also so that when you let's say you're running a 550 lift cam and you have a valve spring that will allow you to go to, let's say, it coil binds at 600 lift and your cam is 550 lift. Well, that means you have 50 thousandths between the maximum lift and valve flow. You actually want it a little closer than that. So some guys will shim that up, like you put a 20,000 shim in there. That leaves you 30 between the installed height, between the valve lift and coil bind. And so that way you have less, there's less wiggle room now for the spring, because it's, it's kind of compressed even farther, getting closer to coil bind. That's okay. You want that to happen because it stops the spring from like kind of oscillating and wiggling around. You have better spring control like that. Like guys that ask all the time, hey, can I run 650 lift springs on your 550 lift cam? Like, yeah, you can, but you shouldn't. One, that's way too much spring rate. You don't need anywhere near that much spring rate. And also, again, now you have 100+ thousandths of available spring to oscillate and move around, because it's almost like it's unsupported. And so you don't want to do that. So that's another reason that people take these all apart and then you shim them and you get them all. And the other thing is, if when they're cutting the seat for these things, where the spring sits in the head, the cup, then if you cut that, they might not all be the same. So the install heights might not be the same. One of them might be 1/800, one of them might be 1/780, the other one might be 1/820 or 1/810 or 1/830 or whatever it is. And so you have to adjust all that so that all of the things are even. Most guys don't do that. Most guys use this tool, compress the spring, put the new springs in, slam it, and call it good. But if you were doing it and setting it all up and trying to optimize it and make everything perfect, you get guys that want to do that, make sure that it's all perfect. We run so many junkyard motors that I don't normally concern myself with that. If I'm doing, like when I built the motor for Engine Masters Challenge, obviously they were all set up exactly the same and they were all right and, all that stuff. And so building it, doing a professional build or whatever, sure that it's all right. And then that way, if you're revving it up really high, that might be the difference between having it valve flowed and not having it valve flowed at the 100 maximum limit that you're trying to get to. That might be the difference. It might have better control and the springs might last longer. I mean, there's a lot of plus side. There's a lot of upside to doing that. It just takes more time, which is why a lot of guys don't do it. Or sometimes, guys don't understand that. Guys don't understand what goes into that sort of setup. But, it's the difference between assembling an engine and building an engine. It's kind of a different thing. So spring setup is very, very important. This tool makes life a lot easier. And then after I got a spring tool like this, like Wastegate has a thing like this, and after I started doing that, I'm like, spring swaps are easy. I mean, with this tool, it just makes life, so quick and easy. I mean, it takes more time really just to move the air over and to set everything up. I mean, doing the swaps, it's like, especially if all you're changing are the springs. If you're doing seals and that sort of thing, it's a little bit longer. But even if it's an hour or whatever, then it's all right. And then then we could do as many cam swaps as we want, and everything good happens. We get valve control and all that, and it all works out really good. So having that sort of thing. The other thing that we've added to the store is we have tunes, which will probably go up on Monday, and then we'll talking about that. We'll have Jimmy and Joel on, and we'll talk about that sometime next week. Also, wastegates. We've tested the 50 millimeter wastegates, both with the big turbo and the small turbo, the GTX 3584. And then also the G42 has no trouble controlling those on the, on the street and on the chassis dyno and stuff. So that's not an issue at all. My turbo set up the way that I run on the engine dyno has provisions for 2 of them. We normally run those turbo smart gates, but we can run 2 of those 50s also. So that would work fine. I just do that on the engine dyno just because the engine dyno seems like it's weird that it wants more wastegate control. But we've tested them in the real world, like I said, on the chassis dyno and on the engine dyno. Run them with the manifold that Jimmy built for the prototype for our kit. Works fabulous. Has gone all the way up. The other bit of information is Jimmy called me today and said the 4060 trans, yeah, it doesn't want to do boost anymore. It's not happy. So we're gonna definitely have to get a different transmission. So if anybody knows if there's a transmission place or transmission person or somebody that like to work with us, that we'll pay for the transmission or whatever, but we want to get a 4L80 for Jimmy to swap in his 05 Tahoe. He's going to need to upgrade what's there. It probably will drive around the way that it is, I think is what Jimmy said, naturally aspirated, but it's not going to do any more boosted things. It's not going to do, because he was doing 600 plus horsepower of the tire stuff. And so it said, hey, look, I think I've done really everything that would be expected of me. I have all of these miles on me. And then now you guys are doing turbo testing with probably, I don't know how much maintenance it's had or whatever, but it's got a lot of hard miles on it, so it's not that's not good. So we'll have to upgrade that. But so lots of good things, lots of good changes coming. We're adding more and more stuff and trying to try to cater to more of the needs of the low buck guy, and because that's what we're all about here. Let's see what you guys beer considers. Well, yeah, it is. You got to lube the mechanic too, right? Otherwise, why bother? Ben from the car farm just sent me. He's here. He checked in, but he sent me a photo of a Dodge Omni GLHS. It's a serial number 75, and I think that he bought it or is going to buy it or something. So, congrats to Ben on that. We're going to talk about that probably tomorrow. I'll see what's going on, see what the deal is. Those are really cool cars. I know because I'm trying to emulate one out of a non-GLHS, so it's kind of cool. Let's see. I need horsepower. What's the best thing I can do with my junkyard LS1? Cam and springs are what most people do. Boost obviously is really good too. Boost will make more than cam and springs, but cam and springs are what most people do. And then obviously you'll need a tune. Richard, thanks for all the great information. Your videos have helped me so much in my journey for horsepower. Happy to help, man. Yeah, and I'm glad you're here. So if you're here and you got any questions, please throw them out there. We'll try to answer them. Build it. Top end, are you saying get one of those newfangled cranks, throw in some exotic rods, some high top pistons in it? I'm just thinking of a bunch of turbo at this point. Just ordered a Truck Plus. That's nice. That's what Jimmy has in the Tahoe right now. Spring set yesterday for 01 Sierra 6 liter. That'll be good in that. Excited to get it. Yeah, that'll be good. And that'll be really good in a 6 liter. Got a serious question. Okay, super fan. First thing you'll do is get rid of the LS1. Having the correct tool make for an easy job the majority of the time. It does. I mean, I've spent so much time doing it the other way rather than just doing it the right way, because I don't want to drive to the auto parts store yet again after the 5th or 6th trip or whatever to try to figure out a workaround when I should just go get the thing and just do it right. And yeah, you got to spend a little bit of money or whatever, but do it right. 3.8 supercharge, every bolt-on known to man. I make him swap it, or roller rockers only for now. Should I change the springs if it's only roller rockers? Is your question that should you do a spring upgrade if you're putting roller rockers on it? Probably yes, because the roller rockers are definitely going to be heavier than stock. And especially if you're changing if you put like 1/9 in it or something, or even if you just did a stock ratio on roller rockers on a supercharged 3.8. I mean, he'd get a lot more from a cam, but yeah, springs would be a good idea. Dennis, what's going on? Arthur, what's going on? Should I skip the cam, get an intercooler with the mass bolt on? I want a cam, but it's a pain, so I'm leaning towards roller rockers. A cam adds more power than rockers do. Rockers are easier to bolt on, which is why a lot of guys do that. An intercooler is a good idea, or definitely E85 if you have the ability to tune it. Big block to LT4 rocker studs I made the spring swap easy. Get to use my LS spring tool. There you go. That's a good use of that. LT4 rocker studs. Thanks for all the videos and emails. Working on the 496. That's good. 496s are good. Better than a 454 or 427 or 396. You know, 496 to 3 from a 396 is like 100 better. Pretty sure I'm considered a tool. There you go. Ford van, 5.4 liter, 2V PI. Mine has a forged factory crank. At what power level does it really matter on cast versus forged crank? Maybe the 5.4s do have a forged crank. You don't have to worry about it. You can never make enough power with that to have to worry about a forge versus a cast crank. I don't think we always put Cobra cranks in when we did all the builds back in the day when I was doing all the stuff with Coast High Performance. But honestly, we never needed it. Even with the turbo stuff, we would never make. I think the 1,000 horsepower thing that we did, I don't think it had a steel crank in it. The 1,000 horsepower 2-valve. I think it had a cast crank in it. What carburetor would you recommend for a small block 383 with Vortec heads and a dual plane, a 218 T24 cam? It's going in a manual 4x4 truck. 383. I'd probably do a 750. Bends out on the road. Also, the tree fort is officially finished. It was unveiled to my nephews and to my, let's see, Lisa's sister, my sister-in-law, I guess, and Lisa's parents. And so they came over and they got to go play in the tree fort, and she got to do the zip line and the elevators working and all of the water guns and all that. So everybody was good. Everybody was happy. The nice thing about putting a cam in the 3.8 liter is that you will also bring the boost down at any given pulley level. So that will definitely be beneficial. That's always good. Probably won't be by a whole bunch, but it could be a pound or two. And that's beneficial. Because on and more so, I would argue, on a root supercharger, because those tend to get they have much higher charge temperatures than, you know, if you were to do the same thing with a turbo or with a centrifugal blower. Answer my question. I'll do springs. I'm going to do that. Might as well just get in there and do the cam. Might as well throw an intercooler. yeah. An intercooler is good. I think that the intercooler stuff for those is that fairly expensive. I don't know how I think ZZP or somebody has that stuff. Speed circuit versus helicoil on aluminum head. Exhaust bolt is stripped. Does anybody have I don't know that I've compared those two. No replacement for displacement. Yeah, I wouldn't do a stroker with a boosted one. If you wanted to do something to really make power, you should put a turbo on it. I mean, you should get rid of the M90 and put a turbo on it. Put a 3584 on it, and all good things will happen. Time search the way to go for repair. On the aluminum head. That's what I did on the cam retaining plate for the L33. Any two-stroke builders? I have a GoPed. Does that count? But I haven't built anything. We did run a pipe on it for a while, and that was fun. but I haven't done anything to the motor. I think I don't know. I guess I could take it apart and do something with it. Building an LS57 on the 85 with the 800 turbo RHP GTX 3584 RS. Chad's in the house. I like the BTR cam. What's your personal pick for a cam for good street manners and any chop if possible? If you don't want chop, I would pick our cam. I picked the little ripper cam. If you do want chop on a 5.7, you could pick with a 5.7. You could pick either the low buck truck, which is not in stock right now, but will be before too long here, or the Truck Plus with a 5.7. Particularly, I don't know if is it a manual trans or an automatic trans. And if it is an automatic trans, does it have some kind of converter in it? Do you want a stock converter? You got to give me a little bit more information. I can steer you in the right direction. Okay. BTR makes awesome stuff too. The Truck Norris cam, obviously, we say nothing but good things about that cam. Just went through this on a Hemi head. A guy drilled and messed up. Time served's worth the extra money. Yeah, it'd be a lot more what I would call permanent. Oh, a 3500 stall? Yeah, then I would get the Truck Plus cam. Definitely. We have that combination right now in Jimmy's 5.3, and it's amazing. And on a 5.7, it's going to be even more responsive. So if I do E85, though I got to be able to tune, do I go to injectors as well then? Yeah, you're going to need bigger than stock injectors. I would think that if you turn the boost up and stuff, I don't know how much, I don't know what the stock injector size is on those. We always put much bigger injectors on them because we have the ability to tune it. Been sending the computer out for a tune, but I could buy HP tuners again, I suppose. Yeah, E85 will require 25 to 30% more fuel. And particularly, and a little more if you're upping the boost or something, or making more power with rockers. About how much boost to get 800 wheel horsepower? You won't get 800 wheel horsepower from a GTX 3584 RS turbo. It's not rated at 800 at the wheels. And it's certainly not on a 5.7. We made 800 flywheel with it on a 5.3. If you want 800 wheel horsepower, I'm hoping that you have a G42 turbo. Just remembered all the 3.8 testing you guys did. Also the M90 superchargers. Forgot how awesome you are. Yeah, I've done a lot of testing with that. We ran a lot of those M90s on V8s. Are injectors common to stick closed when sitting for a long time? That would be the default position if they had been sitting for a long time, and if they had been gummed up or something. Usually, if they do that, you can tap them, and they'll free up. And sometimes we do that when we're like if we have old injectors that we got from the wrecking yard, and one of them is not firing. If we have it we put it on the ASNU machine or injector machine, and then we'll put them in and clean them. So we'll put them in the cleaner. And then if one of them is not working, if we tap on it on the side, a lot of times we can get it to start cycling again. And when it starts cycling, and then it goes through, and then it'll clean itself, and usually it'll work just fine. I wish you made more modular cams. Yeah, that's not on the list, but there are lots of more modular cams out there. Have you ohmed injector coils? I've ohmed injectors themselves, and we do that out of, it's not necessity, but out of habit. Whenever we run injectors on the injector machine, we always find out what ohm they are. And when we do, like on the ASNU machine, when we do 8 of them, let's say, we're also looking to make sure that we don't have one that has like a lot more resistance than the other one, like it has a bad coils in it or something. Which of your turbos would you suggest to get my goal? Will lag be a problem? Never built a turbo set before. No, Jimmy has run the 5.3 with a stock cam and a G42 on that 5.3 Tahoe, and it was fantastic on the street. So on your 5.7 with a 3500 stall, put the Truck Plus camshaft in there, and if you want to make 800 of the tire, that G42 is the way to go. you will be very happy with it. It'll be a lot better than a GT45. It'll be better than an S475 in terms of boost response and in terms of power. Take a multimeter and check all injector coils for resistance and see if they are the same. Like I said, we do that on the machine. The machine does that for us. Two sizes of intercoolers from ZZP. I think the top one is like 1100 or maybe a little more, but if you don't do a pulley drop, there's a lot less knock retard, if any. I wish I could turbo and no turbo experience. Yeah. The intercooler works good. The other thing that I would make sure, and we went to great lengths when we were doing this stuff back when I owned Ram Air Technology, is we want to make sure that you get cold air going into the supercharger. Don't have an open element filter under the hood. Make sure, like ours was sealed inside a canister. They're actually Kenny Bell canisters that we cut down because he had big ones these were for 5 liters or for trucks or something. And we cut them down and then sealed them and then ran a duct from the outside of that. And they had 4-inch openings, inlet and outlet, so they were big. And so we ran a duct to get cold air from the fender well or from up in front of the radiator or something. And so that worked really, really good. But don't just have a in front of don't just have an elbow, a filter with a stick. Just a cone filter and then a piece of aluminum tubing connected to it under the hood. That's terrible. That you'll definitely get more detonation and more knot counts with that. They're my 1000cc injectors, and even though they aren't the Ducks Nuts brand, they're so expensive to replace it. They clean up. Yeah. I meant is they can clean up and not need replacing. Yeah. Have we tested the 2.3 liter Whipple charger on anything? Yes, I've run that. I ran a 2.3 back on a 4.8 long ago. Where would you put the upper limit on a 6 liter for that blower? I don't remember what the 2.3. I think guys could get near 1,000 horsepower with that if you really spun it. But I never recommend you trying to max out a supercharger. Just like I don't recommend you trying to max out a turbo. If you're going to do that, just go up to the next size. You'll be way better off. But we had a 2.3 from Ford Racing that was for a Coyote kit, and we ran it on an LS. But we didn't run it anywhere near its limit. But that's a big enough blower to feed a 6 liter to make, I don't know how much power you're trying to make, but it will make what it makes. It won't make what a 2650 does, like the Kong blower, and won't make what a 4 liter Whipple does either, obviously. $650 would be reasonable. Oh, that'd be very, very easy. Even 650 wheel horsepower would be easy. Just make sure that you have a big enough inlet going into the supercharger, like a big throttle body and inlet going into it, and that you get cold air, like I was just talking about, going into the blower, and then that should have an intercooler on it underneath. Also have problems with the dud ECU for my car. I'm thinking of going down the rabbit hole of aftermarket. It'll definitely be easier well, not easier, but you'll be able to tune it, which will be nice. We've run a few different ECUs, the Holley, the Fast, the Haltech now, which we ish ran on the LS, which worked very, very well, and we're going to put on the Sprint. So shout out to the Haltech guys. I'm excited about that. And now that I'm done with the tree fort, that I can get to work now on the Sprint. Start making stuff happen. And then we're working on affordable injector offerings as well. So that will be good. Well, like I said, The low buck stuff is kind of going to be where we focus on things. Try to keep doing that, finding good options for people, because you know we're all trying to save a buck. We're all living that low buck life. We're all about that. Near. At 200 psi on the rail. 200 psi, is this a direct injected motor or something? Building an LQ4 with your low buck truck, RHP 1200. Do you recommend one or two of your RHP 50 millimeter wastegates? The one controls it just fine. That's what Jimmy has on our kit on his Tahoe, and he's run both of those turbos. And pretty soon we're going to be also testing the G35 on it as well. And we've run the 8.3 or 8.2 AR on the GTX 3584 RS, and then also the 121, and then ran the G42 on there, and 50 millimeter wastegate, not a problem at all. We only run 2 on the engine dyno because on the engine dyno it seems weird. Trying to maximize the end result with my scratching of a paycheck. Yeah, I get that, man. 6-liter LQ9, low buck truck, above 5,000. I'm around 95 kPa. Do you think it's the stock intake causing the manifold vacuum at wide open throttle? Throttle body would be my guess. Also running a stock airbox. Do you, Kyle, how are you measuring the kPa? Is this a factory ECU? Is it a... And what is the... I would want to know what the reading is with the key on, but the motor off. I'd want to know what that kPa reading is. Does it register 100? The stock intake isn't causing a manifold vacuum at wide open, manifold vacuum problem at wide open throttle. The throttle body on a stock 6-liter, probably not that restrictive. A Trailblazer SS and a bigger throttle body will definitely make more power, but most of that's from design. There is some power there from the bigger throttle body. Stock airbox didn't seem to make a big difference when we tested it. 2014 Express Van 4.8. Code said my MAF sensor, changed that. Then ran fuel pressure, got 200 psi, almost blew the gauge. Yeah, there should not be 200 psi. If it's a 14 and a 4.8, then it's an LS and it's not direct injected. Do you have a bad regulator? That's a non-return style system. So do you have a bad regulator back at the pump? Because that's going to be back at the back, right? Factory P59 KP is 100 before 5,000 with the key on. No, I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in on what is the reading when it's shut off? Is it reading 100? Like, should it read 100 above 5,000? Change the pump assembly. It's getting 67 now. Shotgun seeing 200. Yeah, if it's unregulated, particularly particularly when it's not using a lot of fuel, like at idle and stuff, that's when the pressure would be the highest. If it's unregulated, it's flowing the most amount of fuel and using the least amount of fuel, which is the worst possible combination. 100 kPa on key F, okay. And it's got a cam 6-liter. 5 kPa seems like a lot, but yeah, I mean, we know that if you have that combination and you put a Trailblazer SS and a 90 millimeter throttle body on there, you're going to pick up power. You're going to pick up 10 or 12 or 15 or something like that. I don't remember seeing what I have to go back and look at the data and see. I don't remember what the change in kPa was though. What a pain dropping the tank by myself. 6 feet long it is. It's a lot. I got tired of dropping the tank in the Mustang, and it was not anywhere near as bad as a truck one is. You definitely need a jack and stuff to do it. It's a lot easier. But even on the Mustang, we ended up just cutting a hole in the trunk because we got tired of doing that. And that's a dumb design. It's foolish of everybody else not to do it like Honda does it, where they have an access panel that it has 4 screws that hold it on, and you take that panel off. Hey, look, all the stuff to get to the pump and the sending unit and all that stuff, it's all serviceable right there. You don't have to drop the tank to do that. You just undo it, take it out, put a big pump in it, and it just makes sense to make it serviceable like that. For the 3.8 old school sleeper, video guy took a TBS supercharger on plates. So much efficiency, it's barely got warm. Do you have any experience with TBSs? Or give it up and go turbo? You can put bigger blowers on those, and guys have. I built an adapter plate and put a Kenny Bell on one of these long ago, back in like 2000 or 2001 or 2. I did an adapter plate and we put a Kenny Bell on it. It makes a lot more power because the Kenny Bell is way better than the M90. You can put and you can adapter any number of different superchargers on there. You could put a 2650 on there if you wanted to do that. Whatever you want to put on there, you could put on there. If hood clearance isn't an issue, you can do that. But none of the blowers will make as much power as the turbo does, because you don't have to drive a turbo. You don't have the parasitic loss associated with driving it. But if you want to get to 400 at the tire and that will do it, then that's a good way to do it. Should have paid attention to the float. I filled it up after, and it's 3/4. Said to myself, I'm not dropping the tank again. Yeah, and that's when the pump seems to go out. That's when it always went out in the Mustang. It always went out in the middle of the night, right before the race, in the rain. So we got tired of doing that. It's not processing power that's a problem. It's called failed MOSFETs. Fixing it isn't worth replacing it. What's a MOSFET? Putting Haltech on it isn't much more expensive. Haltech, they're good computers. It takes a little bit to learn how to make them work, but they are good. They'll get the job done. Lots of good stuff out there with Haltechs on them. Lots of that stuff in Down Under. Thunder from Down Under. A MOSFET is a quick relay. Okay, I'm not familiar with that word. I don't know that I've ever heard it. I've heard of Boba Fett, but not MOSFET. Yeah, that's a new one on me. Okay. Okay. Yeah, they look like little relays, huh? Metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor. Wow. Type of field effect transistor most commonly fabricated by the controlled oxidation of silicon. It has an insulated gate, the voltage of which determines the conductivity of the device. See? I feel like I've learned something today. It's computer speak for tiny relays. You don't want to get involved in that nonsense, yeah. Wow, I'm going to be using that in a sentence later on sometime. I'm going to impress people. It's like a fibrillator valve. It's a MOSFET. Except that's actually something, though. Off topic, but I've got a win with this week. Nice. I want to hear about it. I'm building a 4.3 liter V6 and got an NOS set of Eagle H-beam rods for it off Marketplace for $150. Nice. So they're the weird thin rods for the weird crank that they use. I like to call it turbos, muffler bearings. Zener diode. Yeah, there you go. It's all ball bearings nowadays. What was I talking to Lisa about today? We went for a walk and we're looking at deer and stuff. So when I was riding my bike up a hill and I saw 5 deer. I saw 4 like baby ones, 2s and 2s, and I saw a big buck, like a 5-pointer, just kind of laying there. He was off to the side on this dirt road. He's just kind of laying down, just chilling. I said, "What's up, yo? What's up, dude?" And so I went and got Lisa. I said, "Hey, there's a bunch of deer out right now. We should go for a walk." So we took the dogs for a walk. We didn't see those deer were gone, but we saw other ones. When we were walking down, I saw we were walking past the houses, and one of the houses had an old what the heck is it called? A hibachi pot. Do you guys know what that is? It's I said that's an old school that's an old school barbecue. And so I was explaining to her what it does. I said, I haven't seen one of those in a really long time. I said, I don't even know if that company is in business anymore. We should take a look and see if that is. There we go. Oh, that's a bit. Oh yeah, they're vintage ones. Yeah, this was a vintage one because I know everybody had these back in the day, and so I was explaining to her what they were and how people used them. If you want to impress, confuse people, start talking transient, steady state, coefficient, and dynamic airflow. No, I don't really want to impress people. And the elasticity of the air column. You can get and reflected waves and inertial RAM. You can get or throw out Helmholtz resonance because people get confused about what that is. Hibachi pot. That was old school. It was OG. Now I'm hungry. I remember this back in the day that because you would put burgers on them and stuff and then close them, and then you have the little lid that you could put on the top, and you could put on a little bit, take it off, or you put on just a little bit, a little to the side or whatever, get a little gangster lean going there. I said, yeah, it worked really good because it would keep all the heat in. And I think that they were I don't think that they were ceramic. They probably were clay, right? They were fired clay or something. Oh yeah, all the cool grillers use those. Oh, grill masters. There. I got an email from somebody a while back telling me about some homemade like cam doctor thing that they made, and then they gave me the results of it. I said, yeah, that's not accurate. I don't know if the math was wrong or the starting point was wrong. I don't know that he's taking into account where the dowel pin is relative to other things on the cam, but the numbers that he got were not accurate. Found an LQ9, unknown mileage, probably runs good for $600. Yes, that's a good deal. You should get it. I thought it'd be interesting to see some intakes that were 3D printed, all with slight variations of. What is it you want a slight variation of? I've done lots of testing of different, primarily runner lengths are the thing that we normally test because it was always easy to do on fabricated manifolds. Tear apart your engine to gap the rings for boost. Do you mix everything or just put back the exact same way and send it? I don't know what you're asking about mixing. What are you talking about? Everything goes, all the rings go back on the same piston. I usually do the pistons one at a time, and the bearings all go back on the same rod and all of that. So you don't mix everything. Your thoughts on running a GM-TBI on an aftermarket ECU? Enough gain to be had, or all the way with a sniper EFI? I don't think a factory TBI is big enough for if you're trying to get performance out of it. If you want to run two of those, like on a dual quad manifold, then you could get more flow and make more power that way. Because the stock TBI is going to be limited in terms of power production because of the airflow, and also limited in terms of how much fuel it can supply. So those are things to think about for that. Anyone heard any rumors of what GM might be doing now that CARB and a bunch of regulations are being dropped? Nothing has happened to CARB. Are you talking about the EPA maybe? Measure, not mix, checking clearances. When we take it apart to put ring gap in it, we take the pistons out, we take the rings off the pistons, we measure the ring gap, and then we cut it to whatever we want it to be, and then put it back on the pistons and install the pistons back in and tighten everything up and torque everything back in place. Steve Morris just tested a 3D printed prototype for Edelbrock or something like that. Yeah, people can make. I have a 3D printed manifold that I haven't run yet, and you definitely can do that. And if you have a big enough 3D printer, you can do a whole intake manifold and not just half and put them together, which is kind of a pain. But you can do that. But it's not inexpensive, and it is kind of time consuming. It's not time consuming as much as doing a casting is. Mustang goes under the wrench soon for the front end. She's down for the count. So when you test the 4L60 against the 4L80 for power loss, how are you going to make sure the torque converters are even? As in using the same amount of power and torque? Well, we can't make sure that the torque converters are the same because they're definitely different torque converters. All we can do is put two stock ones in there. Square it around, different tapers, dimples. Turbo should be the first upgrade to all engines. Once you max out torque, then add components to get more power. Yeah, federal regulations isn't CARB. The CARB is the California Air Resources Board. So the EPA would be federal regulations. I did a cam and heads. Goes into the wrench and then the torch. That counts. That's the hot wrench. You see that? You see that? There's my elevator. Oh. Going up, going down. Does your tree fort have an elevator? And it has stairs because, you know, in case of emergency, don't use the elevator. You're supposed to use the stairs. That's awesome. It is pretty cool. The kids loved it. First, they were a little scared of riding up in it, but you're riding with their mom. That was fun. And actually, I got to give a shout out to Chad because when I told him I'm building, I've been wanting to have an elevator basically, and build a fort that's attached to the elevator. He showed me the one that he did he built an office basically upstairs, and then he built the elevator so he and his dog Otis could ride up. And he goes, like this? I said, yeah, a lot like that. I said, I want my basket to be a little bit bigger than the one that you have because I want two people to be able to ride in it. I said, but that's basically it. I said, I was just going to do, you know, channel and stuff and use the hoist. He goes, yep, but here's the one I use. I said, yeah, that's the size I was already looking at. We were looking at the V-board deal, a cheap one. And it works good because it goes up to the top and stops. It has an automatic shut off, and then it will only go back down. The one thing I did find on this is that they sell you stops that you put in, and they're like rubber stoppers. They're almost like like the adjustable freeze plugs that you put in, like that. So you tighten it and it squishes the freeze plug and expands out. Well, that's kind of what these stops are, and they're terrible. I don't know how tight you have to tighten them. It seems like you have to tighten them enough that it would totally destroy the rubber. So I'm going to make some solid ones that are fixed, and the thing can't go any lower than that. Right now, I just have boards under there, and the stops didn't, like, if you put enough weight into the stop, it goes right past the stops. So I'm going to put some solid ones in there, but you just go down to the bottom, and then I made gates for both of them so that kids can't get in and out of them unless you go through that. And so that's it came out good. It just was a lot of drilling and welding, and, you know, a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money. Did you see Edison Motors flipping out because Canada is using U.S. EPA laws to violate his electric semis? Yeah, I don't know anything about that. Thoughts on Gen 3 LQ9 budget build, realistic limitations of a stock bottom end when gapped? How much? You just tell me how much power you want to make, because we've made 1,500 with those, and we've made lots of runs at 1,000. That's live turbo build. Going up, going down. Yep. Yeah, we have the cutest video Lisa does of the little one riding up with his mom, and his mom's holding him, and then he's riding up, and he turns around and he looks down at Lisa, looks down at the camera. He's got this big smile on his face. I'm like, yeah, that's what it's all about. No, Dan, you just got to tell me how much power you want to make. The most possible is not an answer. That's not an answer. What are you trying to do? Like, will 800 at the tire get you to do what you need to do? Like, if this is just a thing that you're going to drive to Cars and Coffee and want to do burnouts with it, then you don't have to worry about power production. If you want to go run 4s in the 8th, then you're going to need to do something different. So, but you got to be realistic about the thing that you want to do. You got to have some idea. That's like having the best cam or the whatever. That's not a thing. But we did 1540, and the motor was still alive, and that was a Gen 4. It was a LY6, but stock bottom end, stock block, crank, rods, pistons, just ring gap in it. So they'll do that, but I don't know that. I think that's a silly amount of power for someone to try to be driving around it. Drop the cafe fines to $0, so theoretically automakers can make small trucks. Yeah. Just nobody will be able to afford them. There. In Spam-A-Lot. When is this? That's September 28th. Collaboration. I have lots of spam in my spam filter. We don't like that. We want to be spamless. There. Do say dyno tuning and EMF perfect and AFR is right. They will make good power for a long time. I'm going to pick up another one of the turbos from you. Two's better than one. There you go. Watching your back pressure test, I think would increase the reliability overall. What is it you're trying to achieve there, Crazy Foot? I don't know, I guess I need to put some thought into that hard question to answer. Just trying to hurt some feelings on the street, below to eventually drag and drive. Well, do you have the rest of the things that you need to make 600 horsepower or 800 horsepower or 1,000 horsepower? Like, do you have 1,000 horsepower transmission and rear end and brakes and drive shaft and all of that? Keep it at 12 pounds, just a bit more efficient than. What is your? Crazy Foot. I don't know. I don't remember what your combination is. But two of them instead of one of them usually isn't the answer. So I just need to know more about what your thing is to try to help you. These meets are so much fun. And I didn't even show you on the video, which I'll do a video on this. We'll show you the. So this, can you see that? Yeah, that's one of the. That's a. It's a water gun. It's an electric one. It's a Gatling gun. Shoots water. It's awesome. I got one of those. I got a double barrel one of those, and then I have a rack of all the handheld ones. Yeah, it's fun. And I made a little steering wheel and a slide, and then I put balloons up and hung the they weren't helium balloons. We just blew the balloons up and hung them from strings, and then I put washer weights on the strings above the balloons, so that they would just hang down straight, even in the wind. The balloon moves around a little bit, but the weight makes it hang straight. And so that's what we could shoot at with the water guns. So it's like target practice. So you're throwing MOSFETs out there now? There are sporting mods, turbo money only, sending it. Oh, turbo money only, yeah. Yeah, I would get, what you should get for a 6-liter is a G42 turbo. And then if you ever run that all the way up and you're like, you know what would be good? Is like 2 of these or 2 GTX 3584s would also be good. But the single G42 will take you to 1,200 horsepower, and on a 6-liter will be really, really responsive. So that's the turbo I would get. And then if you go, you know what I need is twice this amount, we can get you twice that amount. Yeah, Dennis, it is a minigun. And one of them is a twin barrel minigun, so it's really kind of cool. Chevy Avalanche 5.3, BTR Truck Norris, 3,000cc injectors, fuel pump, 8-inch lift, 37-inch tires, 513 gears, do everything truck. Yeah, I don't think I would put twins on that. 3,200 stall, that's a lot. I think if you have a single turbo on there, if you have a single 3584, I would put a single G42 in place of that if you think you're going to need more. Twins look really cool, but the twins won't be as responsive because you're never going to, I mean, those turbos will support, they'll support theoretically 1,800 horsepower. So I don't think you're going to need anywhere near that amount. I see a lot of turbo systems with perfect boost to back pressure relationships. 0-0. That's an NA one. Dan, happy to help. What's your opinion on Gen 2 small blocks? I think that they're great. I have LT1 tests up and L99 tests up on horsepower and reliability. Okay. Yep. I'd do a single. Your concern for back pressure is not warranted on that turbo. If you're running 7 or 8 pounds or whatever on that, on a 5.3 with a cam in it, you're fine. I might pick a 121 housing if you're worried about it. If you have especially if you have that stall speed, that would be fine. But honestly, with a 3,200 stall, I'd put a G42 on it. With an LQ4 in my truck, I want to put 706 heads on it. Will I have a problem with ping when towing on 87 octane? Yes. Also, I want to try water injection on high compression NA engine. How would you go about it? There's lots of water injection systems out there that you can try. There's lots of them. Snow Performance has some good ones. There are lots of them that you can try. So fireman pole? No, but that was part of the original design off of one corner. In fact, that design goes way back to what I wanted to do on the original one that I had at the other house. I was going to make a U shape off of the thing and then down to the pole so you could slide down. I also wanted to do a because the way it's set up back here with all the trees, that I could run stringers to other things. I could run like bridges and all kinds of stuff. So I would imagine that. What did she? Oh, the little one called it the park. He went to the park. So there's a lot of cool things. It could go to other trees. There's lots of trees that are there and stuff. But one more minute. Such thing as lower buck manual trans options for an LQ9 or just a 4L80. There are inexpensive ones, but you just sacrifice strength usually for the price. Danny Pitts works for Cyberline. Uh-oh, that's not good. You ever have a cam bearing issue on a 6.2 block? I haven't on a 6.2. I've only ever had a cam bearing problem that I've been around twice. One was a 5.3 block when I was doing all the cam tests, and the other one was just recently on Jimmy's 5.3 block. Rebuilt 2 in a row, and a cam wouldn't fit. Took some honing. That's not unusual because when GM does the cam bearings, they hone it with the bearings in place. They do that after they do the bearing install. So that's why when you see a stock one, they tell you don't look at the bearings, because you're going to see copper. Well, you're going to see that when the thing's new, because the way that they hone it, if the thing is not perfectly, I mean, when it's machined, it should be fairly straight. But they put the bearings in and they hone it, and then that way the cam is in there and it all works. But when they do that, they take off material off of the bearing, and if it's offset, you're talking about whisker here, to one side or the other, it will take material off of that. And so if you just put cam bearings in there and they're not honed, it's not unusual that they would be problematic. Middle of the road. Hope your day was wonderful. My day was wonderful. Went to a soccer game. Took the dogs. Got to take the dogs out into this. There's a big like baseball fields and soccer fields and all kinds of stuff. There's nobody out there, and so we don't usually let the dogs off because they're young and they have not understood don't go run away yet. But we took them off the leash and set them free, and they were just in heaven. They ran around like crazy dogs, and they came back up and like, is everything okay? Is everything okay? Yeah, just go be dogs. And it was awesome. I think we just got an injector machine, not quite the ASNU one, but we got one so that we can flow test things and try that out, which would be good. And on that note, it is time to go. But the good news is, or not, depending on your point of view, I will be back tomorrow.